Welcome to Farm to Stable, a science-based equine nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nettie Liebert. I'm a lifelong horse person and professional equine nutritionist with the goal of helping horses and their humans create balanced diets to set them up for success, no matter what age, discipline, or circumstance. Disclaimer, the information discussed here is based on current scientific research and is for educational purposes only. Every horse's individual needs vary. This is not a substitute for veterinary medicine or nutrition consultation. Hello and welcome to another episode of Farm to Stable, an equine nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nettie Liebert. This week, spring ramps up here in North America and finally starting to see some warmer temperatures, at least on some days. You may be starting to ride a little bit more, and you may be asking yourself, is there anything I can do nutritionally to help support my horse's soundness and mobility? And the answer is, of course, yes. Now, nutrition cannot fix lameness. Nutrition cannot treat lameness, but there are things you can do to help your horse stay healthy. And one of those things, is we've talked about a lot, I'm not going to get into too much detail today, is weight management. So knowing what a good body condition score is for your horse, making sure they're not too heavy or not too thin, is going to make sure that the joints don't have too much stress on them from extra weight. And also that your horse is properly nourished and has the nutrients they need and are not too thin. So there's a couple of apps that we've talked about. One is a Horse BCS app from Extension Horses. Another is the Healthy Horse app, which will help you estimate weight for your horse and then keeping track of that. And if you're not sure, asking for help from a knowledgeable veterinarian or a knowledgeable trainer about body condition score. So just really quick, there's a great video produced by thehorse.com. I'll put a link in the show notes about how to body condition score your horse. And that was filmed by Dr. Bob Coleman at the University of Kentucky, who is excellent. It's very easy to follow. So I strongly advise taking 7.5 minutes out of your life and watching that video. Now, I'm going to jump right into supplements because it is a question I get a lot. Every client I counsel asks or feeds supplements, asks about or feeds supplements, some of which are fine, optional, some of which are unnecessary or excessive, and a lot of it really stems from trying to do the right thing and trying to do the best thing you can for your horse. So let's talk about supplements for a little bit. First of all, supplements are not regulated by the FDA or AAFCO here in the United States. So the FDA regulates food and drugs. AAFCO is the American Association of Feed Control Officials, which defines feed ingredients for livestock and pet food. So feed companies have to adhere to these rules and regulations, but supplement companies and manufacturers don't. So it's very much buyer beware. So I have mentioned on this podcast in the past about the National Animal Supplement Council. It's a little yellow oval that says NASC that is stamped on a number of supplements. Now, these manufacturers, in order to earn that seal, have to prove certain quality standards, and they have to prove that what they say is in the product actually is. You may be surprised to learn that there are a number of supplements out there that can say pretty much they've put anything they want in there, but it doesn't necessarily legally have to be in there. Now, that seal does not guarantee efficacy of the product, but it does guarantee that at least what it says you're buying, you're actually getting. Now, please do not take this to mean that I am down on supplements. Absolutely not. I feed my own horse certain supplements as well. It's just very much buyer beware. So when it comes to soundness, the first thing I want to talk about is MSM, or methylsulfonylmethane. So most people, again, know it as MSM. MSM is an antioxidant. It is a source of sulfur, which is important for the biochemistry of building collagen. Collagen is necessary for healthy cartilage and joints. Now, just because you feed MSM doesn't magically mean you're going to cure all things wrong with joints. However, because it is a natural antioxidant and the source of sulfur, it can help support reduction in cellular damage. And studies have shown that 8 milligrams for every kilogram the horse weighs may temper inflammation. So that's about 4,000 milligrams for a horse that weighs 500 kilograms or 1,100 pounds. So 4 milligrams equals 4 grams. A lot of numbers there, but I know you're with me. Vitamin C, which is a water-soluble vitamin, may also support the anti-inflammatory effects of MSM, and all of that was studied by Marinon in 2008. So Marinon and colleagues studied show jumpers, and some of these horses got no supplement, some got MSM, and some got MSM and vitamin C. And in the horses that received MSM, the markers of inflammation measured were reduced. So MSM, when fed at a proper amount, can potentially help mitigate some of the inflammation associated with exercise. Now, we don't want to get rid of inflammation associated with exercise entirely, because we do need inflammation as part of the natural breakdown and rebuilding process that helps to build strength. But with some reduction, we can help possibly reduce some of the negative effects of oxidation. Now, another very popular supplement is glucosamine. And glucosamine is naturally found in cartilage. In supplements, it's typically manufactured from the shells of shellfish, or it can also be made in a laboratory, and it's often supplemented with the notion that it protects joint cartilage. Now, the caveat is that the bioavailability is very low, meaning you don't absorb a lot of this, or horses don't absorb a lot of it. The estimated bioavailability, according to a published study, is only about 2.5%. That's glucosamine HCl, by the way. In a study of horses that were given about 20 milligrams per kilogram of body weight of glucosamine HCl, so that's about 20,000 milligrams for a 1,000-pound horse, found the bioavailability was only about 5.9%. That's Laverty and colleagues in 2005. Now, because of the low bioavailability, that's why a sizable amount of glucosamine is often formulated into the better glucosamine supplements. Now, the question is, does it work? Well, pain reduction has been evident upon a flexion test, but it seemed to be inferior when compared to undenatured type 2 collagen. That was a study by Gupta and colleagues in 2009. Another study by Forsyth and colleagues in 2009 reported improved stride length in arthritic horses, but that study was also supplemented with chondroitin sulfate. So whether it was the glucosamine, the chondroitin sulfate, or those in combination, that study can't tell the difference. An in vitro study, meaning outside the body in a lab, suggested that that combination of glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate may work better together versus either one alone to reduce cartilage degradation. That was by DeCant and colleagues in 2010. So there's really not a lot of information out there teasing out glucosamine by itself or chondroitin sulfate by itself, which is why you'll often see them together in supplements. So speaking of chondroitin, the purpose of that is that, again, it's naturally found in cartilage and connective tissue, and it's often supplemented, as I mentioned, with glucosamine to support the effects of, or to mitigate the effects of osteoarthritis. It's a large molecule. It does appear to be at least somewhat bioavailable and absorbed after oral administration, and that was a study by Eddington and White in 2001, and they talked about that at the American Association of Equine Practitioners Conference. But again, there's really limited research and much more is needed. So the big question, does it work? Well, low molecular weight chondroitin sulfate seems to have that oral bioavailability. It has been reported by Dew and colleagues in 2004. There's a big study out there that has a seriously flawed design in that there was no control group used, and the diagnostics to evaluate the effects of chondroitin in horses was very inconsistent, and that's Hansen et al. In 1997. Now, they reported that feeding a combination of chondroitin and glucosamine improved lameness score, stride length, and flexion test in horses with degenerative joint disease. They did not measure chondroitin sulfate alone, and again, there was no control group. So you really can't draw any good conclusions from that study. There's yet another study that somehow got published with incomplete methods on horse management, and that study did report improved stride length versus a control group. So they did have a control group, but again, it was supplemented with glucosamine HCl. So again, really hard to tease out whether it was the chondroitin or the glucosamine or the combination of the two. So research is really lacking in this. So there's some glimmers of hope. And I do also think that it is somewhat individual, may work better on some horses than others. Another supplement is collagen. It's a structural protein that supports connective tissues, cartilage, bones, tendons, ligaments, skin. Does it work? Well, there was a study at Murray State University of 25 osteoarthritic horses over the course of about 150 days. So some horses got a placebo, some got a glucosamine chondroitin combination, and some got, get ready, glycosylated undenatured type 2 collagen. And they got 3 different doses. Long story short, it seemed that the 480 milligram per day dose of that undenatured type 2 collagen had the maximum effect. And it appeared that it was more effective than glucosamine or a combination of glucosamine and chondroitin for reducing pain. They did not see any adverse effects on the liver or kidneys, but how it actually works pharmacologically on anti-arthritic effects does need additional study. Now, again, this is one study because that's kind of all that's out there. The next one I see a lot. I see it advertised on social media feeds, in horse publications, all kinds of things, and it's hyaluronic acid fed orally. Now, hyaluronic acid is naturally found in joints. It's very important for joint lubrication, and there are a number of applications of this. There's liquid, there's powder oral preparations, there are injectables. That's for a discussion with your veterinarian. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to talk about the oral supplementation. The data is very, very limited, and some of it is conflicting. So I'll tell you what we know. There was a study of very young yearling thoroughbreds who showed reduced effusion after they had arthroscopic surgery compared to controls. That was Bergen and colleagues in 2010. Those yearlings were supplemented 100 milligrams orally for 30 days post-operative in a gel form. Another study of young horses with osteochondrosis supplemented with 250 milligrams of a product called Hylojoint were not different versus controls. That's a study by Carmona et al. In 2009. So synovial fusion and plasma nitric oxide, PGE2, which is something that is heavily involved with the inflammatory cascade, and hyaluronic acid concentrations were measured, but they saw no adverse effects reported. So it seems that it's relatively safe to supplement hyaluronic acid. It seems that the form may matter. But we still don't know what is best, and it is likely that some of the powders may not be as viable as some of the liquid. But again, I can't say that definitively because we need more research. One more thing I'll talk about, which has also become popular in human health and horses, is turmeric. So turmeric may modulate immune-mediated inflammation of the gut, joints, the brain, the body in very low doses. Curcumin is a component of turmeric, which may inhibit some other drug metabolism, such as NSAIDs like buterbanine. There was a review published in 2016. Turmeric at higher doses caused some GI upset in people. It did appear safe in people, and it did appear to downregulate some of the inflammatory cytokines. Cytokines are little proteins in the body that are part of the inflammatory cascade. So it did appear to downregulate some of those inflammatory processes. But that review also did call out the need for larger scale clinical trials in dogs and horses, and it also noted that there was a lack of standardization for the way turmeric was extracted, and the quality control really needed to be addressed. So there's some potential there, but we just don't know enough to say definitively, yes, this works at this dose, blah, blah, blah. So there are a number of studies out there that don't report doses, or they may not be controlled well, or they have other ingredients mixed in, which makes it hard to separate out the true effects. There was a study published in 2009 by Schell, that's Schell, that reported a reduction in lameness grade to curcumin supplemented horses, but the supplement also contained vitamin E and vitamin C. They reported no dosage, and the management of horses was not controlled. So reading that study to me says, I don't really take that much out of it. So as it seems to be relatively safe at lower doses, is it worth trying? Sure, but you want to keep an eye on your horse's overall health, especially gut health, and just make sure that you're not seeing any GI upset or anything like that. And again, it may help some horses and maybe less so for others. So in summary, ideal body condition: not too fat, not too thin, properly balanced nutrition. Good body condition will help reduce joint stress and support normal body temperature regulation and tolerance to exercise. Supplements, they may or may not help. I often will advise clients to try something for 60 days. See if they notice an improvement and take before and after videos and pictures so that you have something to refer back to. And of course, involve a nutritionist to balance the diet, a veterinarian to evaluate your horse's movement and any potential lamenesses that they see, and use that team to help develop the best exercise and mobility program for your horse. So I certainly hope that you enjoyed listening today. If you have questions or a topic you'd like to hear, send an email to equinenutritionphd@yahoo.com. I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you so much for spending some time with me here at Farm to Stable. Happy riding. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Farm to Stable, a science-based equine nutrition podcast. Please share and subscribe if you found the content interesting. And if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send it to equinenutritionphd@yahoo.com.